We're going to continue with sentence 30, Vatahi, with a mercha, lightly connected to what was coming from before, but mostly moving us forward into what's going after. And she was. The life of Sarai was a chain of miseries. Vatahi Sarai, living in a state of depression, and she was deeply affected by being incapable of assuming motherhood in relationship to the end of the sentence, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So again, we have a light connection to what's come from before, that both of them, we said, would have trouble bearing children. And we have the concept that Vayehi usually comes before something that is tragic or something that is bad. Vatahi, when she's feminine, she's going to be living a life where she is living the tragedy of being childless, Sarai. And in fact, as long as she is Sarai, she remains childless with the tipcha. So that closes off the thought that as long as she's Sarai, she's going to remain Vatahi in the despair of being childless. However, because of that feeling of inferiority, she qualified for an elevation of her status, of her name, from a lower level to the one of Sarai, as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So this allows her to have the humility to be somebody who can pass on something higher to other people, and hence, even though she is sad about her not being able to have a child as long as she is Sarai, nonetheless, it allows her to attain a higher level. Akara, infertile, with the stabilizing katon. Not only did she suffer emotional emptiness and shame because being infertile, she compared herself to a tree without branches and leaves. But due to this fact, she also faced an abrupt termination of her ancestry and an extinction of her own life, as stressed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. Okay. So, she felt that she was going to be an end in and of itself. Mm-hmm. That's the way that she was, and that's the way that she was going to stay. So she was going to remain a constant. She was always going to be that way. So she had no change throughout the 91 years that she was Sarai, in her status, in the way that she was going to relate to things in the world. So that was going to be the base from which she was going to be able to remain humble, to be able to relate things to other people. And we have a note. Sarai was the first of the four mothers to initiate the problem of sterility, which involved each one of them. So every one of them gets this, and we see here that we're hinting that even though it was certainly a horrible thing for them to live through, it was something that allowed them to attain part of the status that they were going to attain, because it's kept them away from focusing on themselves and their achievements. Ain, not, with a mercha, so again, lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly moving forward into what's going after it. 4. After frustration in conceiving during the extent of her marital life, she did not have any hopes of ever becoming pregnant, as denoted by the directional shape of the reading mark. So she felt that this was what, not having a child, being childless, was what was going to go forward. That was going to be the way that she was and the way that she was going to stay. La, for her, with a closing tipcha. This is going to focus us backwards and pause slightly afterwards. Thus, the paramount desire for her was to bear a child, and seeing it grow up in order to make her life complete, as expressed by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So, again, we note that as long as she is Sarai, she's not going to have a child. So this is something that is going to be fulfilled. La, to her, to the person named Sarai, there is never going to be a child. And that is going to be the way that Sarai closes out, as somebody who always wants to have a child, always wants to imbue things on that child, and always thinks that she is never going to have that child, and thus is a little more free and a little more desirous of imparting what she has to others, because she always wants her own, but she's at least going to give it to somebody. Valad, an infant, with the stabilizing sof pasuk. Sarai hoped that an infant of her own would not only bring her happiness, but also make life worth living.
Would validate her. That is blood. Of life is
no.
The question is why the second half of Parshat?
What, in love with blood?
The young are still fighting.
So,
Akara meaning by definition in the or not. It could mean Akara and in Valad meaning she couldn't even receive.
Well, it says she's a Mareh.
So we've said that again. There is perhaps a higher and more ethereal character to the Reisha of a pasuk, and perhaps a little more of a lowly interpretation to the second half of the pasuk. The first half is talking about someone to pass ideals and spirituality on. Whereas the second half is to have a physical child. So she has no spiritual heir, and she has no mortal heir, if you will. So that's the way that I would see it in light of what we've been doing up until now with the Reish and the Sefer.
But that doesn't fit with that she talked about children. I mean, just because you don't have children doesn't mean your life is over.
Means that she wants to impart, and she wants to impart, and she wants to impart, and she knows that she's never going to be able to impart it to her own. So she feels that she has to give it. She has to give it over to someone at least. And we have another comment. Vatihi Sarai Akara, and she was Sarai sterile, not for her a child. This seemingly repetitious expression is explained in Zohar, i.e., not for her a child, but she produced many children for other people by helping them to grow up and teaching them kindness instead of cruelty, directing them to believe in one God, as the Gemara says, Kol hamilamed bein chaviro, anybody who teaches the son of his friend. Torah ma'ala alav hakatuv, the Torah brings upon him the sentence Ki'ilu Yilado, that he is as if the person who had given birth to that child. So even though she doesn't directly have children biologically, she has children through the ability of being somebody's teacher.
And two examples of that are the Lubavitcher Rebbe and Rav Kook, the second Rav Kook.
Valad, instead of, and I don't know what was supposed to be in the quotes there, since a vav represents an earthly expression of the spiritual yud. Sarai was missing a human physical child of her own. So we said before from Sarai that the idea of the yud is that it is the only letter in the Hebrew alphabet that doesn't touch the line at the bottom. It is God sort of in the unreachable, unattainable, in the heaven sense. And Ein La Valad, she has nothing that reaches from the heaven to the ground. She doesn't have the vav. She doesn't have the ability to join the two as long as she is Sarai.
I think it's supposed to say Yeled.
Yeah.
Valad instead of Yeled, since the vav represents the extension.
Okay, that would make sense. So we can certainly, in that quoted word, change that to Yeled, Yud Lamed Daled. So she doesn't have a Yeled. She doesn't have something that allows that connection.
What is it? I can't see. What does that say?
So it should be Yeled. I think we're going to replace that with Yud Lamed Daled.
What does
she
it say?
has. I don't know. It's
Whatever
obviously
it's supposed
something that was
Some type of
supposed.
vertical.
You're using the English to Hebrew typewriter,
Yeah.
and instead of turning it into into Hebrew, you left it on English for one. That's what that looks
Yeah.
like.
So what is it,
Um,
E and I and an A? Or?
It's
Typo.
it's not relevant. It's a
No, no, it
typo,
doesn't
matter.
and I think we are going to go with what Victor says, that should be Yeled, Yud Lamed Daled, and it becomes Vav Lamed Daled, stating the difference between something that doesn't have a physical connection and something that does have a physical connection, the Yud to the Vav.
But in light of what you said, it's interesting because that Yud, so Yud stays up there in Shemayim, and a Vav brings it down to earth. But the word Vlad, oh yeah, a
And that's
Vlad
the
would
point.
do that.
That's her
Mhm.
So
point.
what a Yeled though? A Yeled, the word is Yeled, whatever, okay. Okay, we got, whatever.
I got a big.
So, but the he's
Big one,
Sarai. Sarai is going to be Sarai. So there's a pause after Sarai,
Mhm.
and Akara. Ein La, as long as she's Sarai, she's not going to have Valad. She's not going to have something that comes into physical fruition. So we see the pauses after Sarai and the pauses after La. But he's Sarai, Akara, Ein La, Valad.
So what you said before about when she gets her name Sarah, that's when that Yud does come down to it, and that's when she has a kid. And her name changes. Right? Yeah.
So her name changes. Her name changes as she's given the blessing that she's going to be somebody who's going to have the
And now that
potential.
Yud from Sarai is now
Mhm.
coming down to her.
So that's part of the change of her name. She becomes somebody who will have the potential to have a child. And similar, Avram, a great leader of many nations, will become Avraham, Av Hamon Goyim. He'll be the father of the nations, not just their leader. Page 155. Vayikach, we were looking for a no, there's one more. Vayikach, we have a Kadma V'Azla, and he took, so this is going to focus us forward, and to emphasize the word. Following the death of Haran, when Avram and Nahor took care of their brother's children, Terach participated, and he took precautions to prevent similar tragedies due to the religious fanaticism as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So he's going to move forward from this place where there is an inherent danger, Terach, with the closing Azla. So again, this is going to emphasize his name and look backwards at the word from before. Terach anticipated increasing danger for Avram and himself because they were suspicious of plotting a revolutionary subversion of the existing ideologies, as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So here in this parish, we've seen that Terach is really a more deserving of praise character than we attribute to him, and he sort of reads the writing on the wall that this is not a good place to stay. So he takes et Avram.
So why is Terach like? Well, if you go by the word, that means he went forward. But you're saying, but the note is shaped backwards. So what do we learn from Azlan?
We learn from the same thing that we learned from a tipcha, sort of, so that it's looking backwards at what's come from before and it's closing off the thought. So it's the action of Terach that's making them get ready to leave. Terach is the one who is affecting this leaving, affecting. So he gets the merit. It's not just a merchat tipcha. It's not just an explanation of a sequence of events. Rather, it is, this is a great act that he did. That's why we have a kadma v'azla, not a merchat tipcha. So Terach did something exceptional.
So yeah, but according to the separate notes I'm saying. So kadma, he's moving forward and leaving bad place.
So we're not always taking that. Well, we are actually. So whenever we see kadma v'azla, we see a person responding to a circumstance and acting possibly at the earliest moment that the situation becomes recognized. So many times when we see Kadma V'Azla,
Why
we
you say
see
Kadma V'Azla is one? Now you're saying what I always
many
do.
times when we see that
Combination.
note combination, we are going to notice that it is in a circumstance where you have had an event happen, and then something else happens as a response to that event. And we will often see that it is an immediate following, i.e. that this is something that is happening with some speed to it, with some zrizut, with some alacrity to it. So you're responding to an event by not just sitting and thinking about it slowly, but rather responding with haste.
I guess what I'm asking, why is it shaped backwards?
It's
It almost
shaped-
undoes what the
it's
first
sh-
one does.
it's
Kadma
shaped-
V'Azla are almost opposites. Like,
It's shaped backwards because the event we're going to have an action, and then we're going to attribute that action to someone and give them the honor that they're the one who did the action. So that's why Terach has the Azla that closes off the phrase. It's going to say that he gets the credit for doing this
but why the backward shape, sort of?
because it's backward shape because it's talking about Vayikach,
Oh, referring to the Vayikach.
referring to the Vayikach. Et Avram with a munach. This is going to be separated out from what's come from before and moving forward to what's going to go afterwards. With Avram, Terach occupied himself primarily with Avram to render his safety because he was at high risk, accused of arranging criminal intrigues against the existing belief and orders, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So the protection of Avram had to be more than the protection of other people. So Avram's level of danger
He was high
was
risk.
separate from everybody else's level of danger, and that's why he gets the munach that separates out his level of risk from everybody else's level of risk. So because of him, they're going to move forward into Beno, his son Rivi'i. So this is good to make him stand alone and have some breadth and importance. He saw eminent danger for himself as well, being considered a collaborator with his son, particularly after the execution of the previous one, as pointed out by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So again, when we see a Rivi'i, we see that it is something that spreads out at the sides, and he feels that the blame that Haran got because of Avram is going to start spreading, and it's going to include him as well. So we see that breadth in the Rivi'i as sort of spreading out to include others.
I keep
So-
forgetting that Rivi'i is like a diamond. I think that it was
Mhm.
dots. You know, it's nice.
Viet Lot with a mahapach. So this is going to scoop things from before and focus them more narrowly. And with Lot, number 5.
Oh, wait a minute, I forgot about Lot. So wait a minute, Lot is Haran's son also, right?
Mhm.
So there was two sisters and a brother. Milcah's his sister also. I forgot about Lot, right?
There were also denouncing suggestions that after Haran's death, the heat of the revolt still exists. And with Lot, there was an idea to make out of him a follower of his father's ideas, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. So Lot, in a separate way, is going to be somebody else who might be the leader of a revolution as well. So he scoops up the blame for a different reason, because of his association to his father. Ben Haran, and the specific reason that Lot is going to get the blame is because Ben Haran, because he's the son of Haran. So that's going to be what's the main focus of Lot's association with his plot.
The upper
Number
part.
6, besides Lot could be very dangerous, since as a son of Haran he might try to revenge the death of his father, as suggested by the directional shape of the reading mark. So he might
Avenge.
stand
It
out
should be
for
avenge. Okay.
he might stand out for a different reason. He might be somebody who just wants to avenge his father's death rather than follow his father's ideals. So it might not be an ideological something. It might just be for the reason of revenge. Ben Beno, a son of his son, with the katon, the 2-part note on it. Moreover, Lot might be encouraged by his family atmosphere and well educated by Terach himself as a son of his son to cause grave disturbances as expressed by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So this is a person who's got multiple reasons to be a traitor to the order. Lot. So because of his association with Terach and his association with Avram and being Ben Haran, so he's got lots of reasons to be somebody who's going to turn out to be a rabble rouser, and it might be for more higher ideological reasons, or it might just be for base revenge. So therefore, he's got a higher and a lower reason to challenge the order of things.
So who's Ben Beno? Wait, so Lot is Ben Haran, and when they say Ben Beno, aside from the terrorist, who's that? Who is that? Still talking about Lot, and now whose son is he there? After the Ben Haran, when it says Ben Beno. Can't be Haran again, because they just said Ben Haran.
Ben Beno of Terach. In other words, Lot is the son
Oh,
of
Ben
the son.
Haran, and Haran is the son of Terach, right?
Yeah,
Beno is-
so
So
Lot
it's
is
saying
Ben Beno.
Lot's influenced by Terach as well.
Right.
Why, there's always a way to spin it that he's guilty.
Right.
Just doesn't matter, from whatever angle you come at it, he's going to be suspected.
But I'm just saying, so Ben Beno there is referring to Terach, right?
Is referring to Terach.
That Haran is the son of Terach, not. But
Yes.
we're including
Mhm.
now Lot also, right?
Correct. We're talking about Lot. V8, and also, and along with the Pashta, so this is going to give focus and importance to number 8. The woman of the house was equally mistrusted, and along with the men, she was similarly exposed to the most severe punishment. So before we talk about Haran, now we're going to change the focus. So that's why we have a Pashta to say strongly. There's another focus that we've got to keep our eyes on, as specified by the directional shape of the reading mark, and this is going to move us forward into talking about Sarai with a munach. So this is going to have her have a separate reason, and that's going to move forward into the consequences because of her. The blame of Sarai could have been substantiated by several facts: as a daughter of Haran, as a wife of Avram, and by the close relation to Terach, as illustrated by the shape of the reading mark. So she has separate reasons of her own for being somebody who might be again against the order, and somebody who would cause a threat. Kalato, his daughter-in-law. So again, we're relating to Terach, number 10. So with the katon, so a two-part note, something higher, something lower. She was not only the daughter of his son, but also his daughter-in-law, as conveyed by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So she had multiple connections to Terach, all of which brought her into a position of being perhaps a danger to the current order.
She's Terach's daughter-in-law and granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good quiz question.
Eshet Tipcha, a wife of, and this is going to focus us backwards and pause after it. So, at the same time, it would be expected that as a wife of a man, she would follow the ideas of her husband, who was already in disgrace, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. And she's also the wife of Avram, and that's going to be a source of her being a rebel as well. And a further comment, the fact that Terach included a woman in the three-man association was not to provide efficient functional service adapted for a female, but mainly to obtain opinions and advice based on her views and specific understanding from the level of Bina. Moreover, Terach knew that Sarai was a prophetess, and her superior protection could extend also over all the men of her group. So the question is, why is Terach going and making a special effort to save Sarai? Why isn't he just saving Lot and Avram and Nahor? So why Lot and Avram at least, because those are the two we've mentioned here. Because he knows the characteristics of Sarai, and he knows that as a moral influence and as a woman who has a special connection to the idea of Bina, of understanding of the order of things, that in protecting her, she might be able to protect the whole group as well. Avram, with a munach, this separates out, again, Avram's risks from all of the others and leads to the consequences that go after. The fact that she had joined Avram, who is known as a strong activist against the old rules, jeopardized her position and safety even further, as depicted by the shape of the reading mark. So here again, I'm not quite sure why we're not emphasizing the separation that a munach has. And again, we see that
What were we on now?
we're on number
Bishop.
12, Avram.
Right.
We see that the commentary focuses on the connection of Avram to Sarai, whereas we would normally have interpreted the munach as this being a separating note. He is, again, as we have in the last chapter or so, given it a more connecting tone, if you will. And again, I'm not quite sure why the change in focus came, but I want to point out that it is there. Nonetheless, we move forward from Avram's influence, Beno, his son, number 13, with a stabilizing etnachta. Terach was not in a less disfavored situation, double negative, a less disfavored situation, because he was both father of Haran and Avram, who was his son. Both brothers were known to have similar mentalities, which presumably derived from one father, as signified by the shape of the reading mark. So the fact that both Haran and Avram were known to be revolutionaries, and their connection to Terach being his sons, are what gives Terach the idea and the fortitude to pick up everybody and say it's time to go.
So wait, but Nachor and Milcah they stay behind, right? Nachor and Milcah, according to this, right? They're not mentioned. Isn't that what we
They are not mentioned, so
they didn't leave.
So
Of course, they have to stay behind.
They didn't leave. The question is, did they stay in that city? They moved to another city. Not mentioned. It's the question of what Terach is trying to preserve. Terach is trying to preserve those people who have multiple influences on their lives that would make them targets for arrest or harassment or whatever.
And then later he has to stay there because when Yitzchak's going to go and look for a wife, they're still going to be back there.
So the question is, are they back in Ur Kasdim? They're not, but they're close to there. So again, did they leave at the same time, at a separate time? It's more a question of, did Terach have to act? Did Terach actively affect their exit or not? And we're saying the thing that Terach affected is that Lot is leaving, Avram is leaving, and Sarai is leaving. Those are the things that Terach has influence over. And if anybody else left, it was on their own speed or their own merit or their own concerns.
So Lot's wife, because later Lot's wife...
Your answer is in the next point. Number 14 is your answer.
Vayetzu, and they went out. Number 14. Terach consulted Avram and Sarai about the situation, and they went out decisively from their previous home, leaving Nachor behind because he refused to join them, as portrayed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So we again have a Kadma v'Azla. We have this combination where we're going to attribute credit, and we're going to say that it's sort of a quick and immediate response to a situation. Itam, with them. Not only was Lot included with them, but so were many friends who supported the new revolutionary views and ideology as demonstrated by the corresponding directional shape of the closing reading mark. So these are going to, anybody who goes out with them is going to be people who were at this higher level.
This is the
but
Nefesh
they ate.
B'Charan, right? Remember that later on they say,
Well,
this is
they're,
where they're from.
they're in Ur Kasdim now. They're not in Haran yet.
Well, they're going to
They're
Haran.
going to Haran.
But what's that pasuk is that he made? Well, he took them from Ur Kasdim, and now those are the ones he works on in
So
Haran.
this is
The ones
what
who follow
Terach
him.
is doing. Terach is running away from persecution and saving them because he's afraid that they're going to be killed. Terach is not leaving on an ideological basis because God told him to leave. Terach is not leaving because he necessarily believes in God. He's running away because if he stays, he's afraid he's going to be killed.
Because there's association
And he's
to,
he's fearful of a mortal king. He is not standing up for an ideal.
he's afraid that he's Avram should have left it like.
But
that's Terach
no.
leaving.
Do you understand the point? The point that I'm trying to make here. The point that we're trying to make here.